Have you ever opened your fridge, stood there staring at the same few containers and thought, well, it's either leftover meatloaf again or cottage cheese with a side of loneliness? You're not alone. Honestly, sometimes eating feels like more of a chore than a joy, especially when we're not sure what we should be eating anymore. I was talking to my neighbor Doris the other day. She's 82, full of sass, and makes the best lemon pound cake you've ever tasted. She told me, I've been eating the same way for 50 years, and I've made it this far, haven't I? I nodded, of course, but then she rubbed her knee, sighed, and said, though I am starting to feel like a used car some mornings. That's just it. We have made it this far, but the truth is, the rules our bodies follow in our 60s, 70s, and beyond aren't quite the same ones we lived by when we were chasing kids around the house or working long days without blinking an eye. And if we're not paying attention, some old habits can sneak up on us and start slowing us down in ways we don't even realize. Let's take breakfast, for example. Remember when skipping it used to be the trick to saving calories? Or when a bowl of sugary cereal with low-fat milk was considered a perfectly balanced start to the day? We didn't think twice about it. We had things to do. Now, though, if I skip breakfast, I end up wandering the kitchen like a zombie at 11 a.m., cranky and eyeing the cookie jar like it's whispering my name. That's one of the sneaky mistakes a lot of us make, starting the day without real fuel. I'm not talking about a coffee and a dry piece of toast. I mean something that sticks to your ribs a little. A scrambled egg, some oatmeal with chopped nuts, half an avocado on whole grain toast if you're feeling fancy, just enough to tell your body, okay, we're up and running. Let's do this.
Another one? Let's talk about juice. Oh, I know, it sounds healthy, it feels healthy. My Aunt Rose used to swear by her morning glass of orange juice, said it kept her regular, though I think the bran muffins had more to do with that. But here's the deal. Juice, even the 100% kind, is often just a glass of sugar dressed up like a health nut. All the fiber from the fruit? Gone. What you're left with is a sugar spike that might give you a burst of energy and then leave you nodding off in your recliner half an hour later. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you can never enjoy a glass of juice again. I'm just saying maybe have the orange instead of the juice. Peel it, smell it, enjoy the texture. Your body will thank you, and you might actually feel full for longer than a commercial break. And here's a little story that still makes me laugh. My cousin Harold decided to eat healthy a few months ago, so he bought himself a box of those frozen healthy dinners. You know the ones. They promise low calories, low fat, and a picture on the box that looks like it was plated by a 5-star chef. Well, Harold pops one in the microwave, eats it in 3 bites, and says, "That's it? That's the meal?" Then he made himself a peanut butter sandwich right after. Those frozen meals can be sneaky. Sure, they're convenient, and they're fine in a pinch, but they're often packed with salt and not much else. Not a whole lot of fiber, not much real protein, and definitely not enough to keep someone like Harold from rooting around the kitchen for a second act. That's why I always say, if you're going to eat something from a box, dress it up a little. Add a side of fresh vegetables, or throw in a handful of beans or some cooked chicken if you have it. Make it your own. Your plate should feel like a meal, not a suggestion.
And while we're on the subject of what's on our plates, can we talk about beige food for a minute? You know what I mean. Toast, crackers, mashed potatoes, noodles, maybe a bit of chicken if we're feeling adventurous. All soft, all easy, all very beige. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with comfort food. Heck, I still think mashed potatoes are one of life's purest pleasures. But when your whole plate looks like it could disappear into the background of a sepia photo, we might be missing out on something. Colorful foods, bright greens, deep oranges, ruby reds, those are where a lot of your vitamins live. Think of them like nature's little multivitamins, just tastier and less chalky. But as we get older, sometimes our meals get simpler and, well, duller. It's easier. softer, quicker, and before we know it, the veggies get pushed to the side or forgotten altogether. Now, my friend Betty, she's 76 and lives by herself. She once told me, "I don't cook vegetables anymore because I'm tired of them going bad in my fridge." I get that. Nobody wants to find a soggy zucchini melting into the produce drawer. But here's a little trick. Frozen vegetables. Yep, the same ones you probably used in casseroles back in the 80s. They're picked at peak ripeness, they last forever, and they're already chopped for you. Just toss them into whatever you're cooking. Soup, eggs, pasta, you name it. You still get the nutrients, the color, and zero guilt about throwing away another floppy carrot. And speaking of pasta, can we admit that portion sizes have gotten a little generous over the years? I remember when a plate of spaghetti looked like a modest meal, not a Mount Vesuvius of carbs. These days, it's easy to think more is better. But for most of us, especially now, it's really about how we're eating, not just what we're eating. I used to wolf down dinner in front of the TV without even noticing what I was tasting. I'd look down and think, wait, did I eat the whole thing? And then, sure enough, I'd feel bloated, tired, and somehow still not satisfied. But when I started taking a little more time, eating at the table, chewing slowly, actually paying attention to the food, I noticed I got full sooner and felt better after. It's not about turning every meal into a candlelit event. Though, if you want to throw a little Sinatra on and pretend you're dining at a fancy place, I say go for it. It's about giving your body time to say, okay, I've had enough. Because when we eat slowly, we actually hear that little voice. And it turns out that voice isn't asking for a second helping of macaroni. It's just asking us to notice it. Another thing I want to gently bring up, and I promise this comes from a place of love, is the habit of undereating. I know, it sounds strange in a world that's always talking about dieting, but a lot of older adults end up not eating enough. Appetite can shrink, meals feel like too much effort, or you just fall into a pattern of snacking here and there instead of sitting down for something real. And the problem is, when we eat less but not better, we're not getting the nutrients we need. Protein, fiber, calcium, vitamin D, these aren't just nice-to-haves anymore. They're the stuff that helps us stay strong, avoid falls, keep our brains sharp, and even fight off illness. If we skip meals or rely on tea and toast, we might feel light at first, but not in a good way. That's what happened to my Uncle George. He's 84, still drives himself to the bowling alley every Thursday, but he started losing weight without trying. At first he thought, well, hey, look at me, slimming down. But then he got weak, tired all the time. Turns out he was skipping meals without realizing it, just grazing here and there. Once his daughter started prepping real meals he could reheat easily, he perked right up, even won $8 at poker last week. So it's not just about eating, it's about nourishing, feeding yourself the way you'd feed someone you love. And if that means keeping a few simple things on hand, boiled eggs, tuna salad, soups, yogurt, peanut butter, then you've got a little toolbox of go-to meals, no fancy cooking required.
It doesn't have to be complicated. It just has to be thoughtful. Like pouring a good cup of coffee or choosing a card for a friend's birthday. Small things, but they mean something. They keep us connected. They remind us that we still matter. And really, that's what this all comes down to. Because you do. You matter. And your body, this wonderfully stubborn, creaky, resilient body that's carried you through decades of birthdays, heartbreaks, family dinners, and sleepless nights, still deserves care. Not because you're trying to look 20 again, but because you want to feel good today, right now, as you are. Now, let me tell you about my cousin Irene. She's 79, lives with 2 cats, and swears by her afternoon cup of tea and 2 shortbread cookies every single day, rain or shine. She once told me, if I don't have my cookie break at 3 o'clock, I get crankier than a toddler without a nap. And honestly, I love that for her. There's something beautiful about having little rituals that bring you joy. But here's where Irene is smart. The rest of her meals? Pretty solid. She eats her veggies, makes a decent breakfast, and stays hydrated, mostly thanks to that giant water bottle her daughter guilted her into using. So, a couple cookies? No big deal. It's not the treat that's the issue. It's when the treats start replacing the meals. That's another common slip-up. Somewhere along the way, those little indulgences, cookies here, a soda there, a bag of chips while you just watch the news, they sneak in and start pushing out the good stuff. And before you know it, your daily meals start looking more like snacks with a side of regret. It's not about cutting out all the fun. No one wants to live in a world without pie. But if treats are crowding out real meals, or if we're eating out of habit more than hunger, it might be time for a gentle reset. Ask yourself, would I feed this to someone I love 3 times a day? If the answer is no, well, maybe it's time to treat yourself with that same love.
And oh, hydration. Let's talk about that for just a minute. I know, everyone's always nagging about water, but you wouldn't believe how many aches, headaches, and tired afternoons can be traced back to just plain old thirst. The kicker? As we get older, our bodies don't send the same signals they used to. You might not feel thirsty, but that doesn't mean you're not running low. My friend Gerald, he's 85 and sharp as a tack, was getting dizzy spells and brain fog that made him think something serious was going on. Turns out, he was just dehydrated. Once he started keeping a glass of water by his chair and sipping throughout the day, he said, it was like someone turned the lights back on. If plain water bores you, and I get it, it's not exactly a thrill ride, try adding a squeeze of lemon, or toss in a few cucumber slices or frozen berries, or drink herbal teas, especially if you're not a big fan of cold drinks. As long as you're getting the fluids, it counts. Now, I can hear some of you thinking, okay, but what if I just don't feel like eating sometimes? And that's real. Our appetites can shrink for a lot of reasons. Medications, slower digestion, even loneliness. But that's when eating becomes less about hunger and more about nourishment. It's about being kind to your body even when it's being a little quiet. A small bowl of soup, a slice of toast with hummus or avocado, even a smoothie with yogurt, fruit, and a little protein powder. These are all gentle, easy ways to get nutrients in without feeling overwhelmed by a full meal. And if cooking feels like too much work some days, that's okay too. Just have some go-to staples ready to grab. Cheese sticks, hard-boiled eggs, little containers of tuna or beans, things you can just assemble. Because feeding yourself well doesn't mean pulling out pots and pans every day. It just means listening to your body and giving it what it needs, whether that's a warm, simple meal or just a few bites of something with real substance.
And listen, I know it can feel a little overwhelming to rethink the way we eat, especially when we've been doing things a certain way for decades. But change doesn't have to be dramatic. It can be a quiet shift, swapping soda for sparkling water, adding a side salad, eating one more real meal a week instead of grazing through the day. You don't need a diet book. You don't need to count anything. You just need to be a little more curious, a little more intentional, and maybe a little more forgiving with yourself on the days it doesn't all go perfectly. Honestly, it's like anything else in life. We're just figuring it out, one step at a time. Some days we make great choices. Other days we eat toast for dinner and call it a win. Either way, we keep going. We try again tomorrow. And maybe that's the best part of this whole thing, knowing it's never too late to take better care of yourself. Not in a big, dramatic, change everything overnight kind of way, but in the quiet, steady, thoughtful way you've been showing up for others your whole life.
You know what's wild? I once sat next to a gentleman at a community lunch who was 91. His name was Walter, wore suspenders with tiny golf clubs on them, and he told me he'd only started eating spinach in the last year. Tasted like grass at first, he said. Now I crave the stuff. I asked him what made him start. He shrugged and said, "Figured I'd give it a go." That's the spirit. Not perfection, just possibility. The idea that you can still try something new, that maybe one small change could make your knees ache a little less, or your energy stretch just a bit further into the afternoon, or your mind feel a little clearer during your crossword. And here's something else I want to say, something we don't talk about enough. Food is emotional. It's tied to memories, family, traditions. It's how we celebrate, how we mourn, how we comfort ourselves. So if you find yourself reaching for sweets when you're sad, or skipping meals because you just feel off, you're not doing anything wrong. You're being human. I had a friend named June who always made her late husband's favorite chicken casserole every year on their anniversary. She didn't even like it that much, too heavy, too rich, but it made her feel close to him. That's not a mistake. That's love on a plate. What matters is that we balance those moments with the kind of eating that supports the life we're living now.
That might mean having a warm bowl of lentil soup with dinner, or trying whole grain bread instead of white, or keeping fresh fruit in plain sight so you remember to grab an apple instead of a cookie when that 3 p.m. craving hits. Not because apples are better people than cookies, but because your body might need something real in that moment, not just something sweet. It also means being gentle with ourselves. We all have days where we eat out of boredom, or forget to drink water, or snack on pretzels while telling ourselves it's just a little something. And you know what? That's okay. Really. What matters most is the overall pattern. Are we mostly giving our bodies what they need? Are we eating with intention, at least most of the time? That's the part we can control. We can choose to listen. We can choose to make the plate a little more colorful. We can choose to treat eating not like a task, but like an act of kindness. And speaking of kindness, I want to touch on something that can make all the difference: sharing meals. Eating alone, especially day after day, can wear on you. It takes some of the joy out of food. You stop cooking the things you love. You eat standing at the kitchen counter. You skip the napkin, the nice plate, the little extras that turn eating into dining.
But when you share a meal, even if it's just once a week, it lifts the spirit. It reminds us we're still part of something. Whether it's a potluck at church, lunch with a neighbor, or even a phone call while you both eat at the same time, connection changes everything. It makes the soup taste warmer, the sandwich feel special. The food, no matter how simple, feels like it matters. And maybe that's where we'll leave things for now. Not with a list of rules or some big dramatic conclusion, but with a quiet reminder. You are worth the effort. Every bite you take that nourishes your body is a gift, not a punishment, not a chore, a gift. So the next time you open the fridge and see the usual suspects, don't sigh, don't close the door, take a moment. Ask yourself, what would feel good in my body today? What would taste good and do me good? Then grab that apple, or slice up some cucumber, or heat up last night's soup and throw a little cheese on top for good measure. Put it on a real plate, maybe even sit by a window while you eat. And know this, in choosing to care for yourself, even in this small, quiet way, you're doing something deeply wise and deeply loving.